So let's go through the airlines. We can start at the top with Emirates. The important point here is that location alone does not determine exposure. The Middle East currently has limited mandatory SAF or ETS exposure, but Emirates connects heavily into Europe and Asia. That means it picks up European SAF and ETS costs on relevant routes. You can see the expanded ETS will be just under $1 billion in exposure in just 2030 alone. EasyJet is a very, very different case. As a largely intra-European low-cost carrier, much of its exposure is already captured in existing ETS rules. That is why an ETS expansion changes the picture less for EasyJet than long-haul operators. From a European low-cost carrier perspective, a broader scope may actually look fairer, more cost competitive, because it brings more long-haul and connecting traffic into the compliance mechanism and cost base. Lufthansa Group sits somewhere in the middle of these two cases. It has short-haul, it has long-haul, passenger, cargo exposure. That diversification helps spread risk, but in this specific case, being a major European carrier, it also creates a large absolute cost base. In this scenario, Lufthansa already has a major SAF and ETS exposure of 2.7 billion dollars in 2030. The expansion would add an additional $1.8 billion with our pricing assumptions and et cetera in 2030. So across EasyJet and Lufthansa and generally European carriers, one key point stands out for me anyway. ETS costs dominate more than most people expect. SAF gets a lot of attention because the price premium and supply challenge is visible. But in the near term, carbon pricing will be the larger cash cost driver, while SAF remains the deeper long-term sustainability chain challenge, supply chain challenge. American Airlines gives a useful contrast. In the base mandatory view, its exposure is lower because the US has relied more on incentives and mandates, but it's not insulated. A European ETS expansion would fundamentally increase its exposure on flights departing Europe. And Air China, representing other Chinese state carriers and airlines in APAC, shows why APAC cannot be treated outside the compliance story. The forecast is driven by assumed local SAF and ETS developments, specifically in China and India. The exact details are less settled than in Europe, but by 2030, it'd be risky to assume APAC carriers remain largely untouched. Great.